Okay, welcome back. My name is Mike Mattesi. I'm the author of the Force figure drawing books. This is our last week, week 4. We're going to discuss shape, forceful shape in this video. Whew, last week was a big one, a doozy. And this one actually is too. It's a little less brainy, less intensive than all the stuff we covered last week. Last week we talked about perspective. We talked about scale, tangents and overlap, forceful form, forceful form lines, and then this really big one, which I was sort of impromptu. I didn't plan to discuss this, quite honestly, in last week's video. I didn't know I would discuss it at all, but it's just great conversation to think about, again, between, seeing the world and knowing it and what happens in between those two and how they bounce back and forth to one another. And then finally, the full process of drawing, which is the seeing, the thinking and feeling, and the actual execution. And that's really it. That's the process of it. And in this process, the knowing I'm trying to teach you, and hopefully that you will see when you go out and do it, is force. And the more practice you have with it, the better you're going to get at it. That's really the short of it. So, all right, today we're going to talk about forceful shape. So I'm just going to write here force shape. Okay, so we talked about force in the first couple of videos, right? We talked about line, right? And there's this forceful line, and it's basically a curve. Okay, it's typically a curve. It is a curve. It's not to say that a straight doesn't have force, but it really doesn't have as much. It's that key moment, the main event, right, where things happen, where you start to feel like G-force in the line that you're drawing, where you would drive the car through a curve and really get thrown against the side of it, not in the straight. So now we're bringing a straight into the idea. So I have this curve of force and I have this straight line. So the curve equals force. The straight equals structure. Okay? What happens is you combine the two. Okay? So you have something that finally looks like this, because remember, we're talking about shape. So we have something that looks like this, and it creates this shape. I'm going to tone this in really quick. This is a forceful shape. This is force shape. Okay. So now what we have is we have force and we have structure. And the force has this sense of energy and pliability to it, and the straight mark finally gets us through drawings that have structure for force to hang off of, basically. If you drew a figure drawing with all curves, what I find ends up happening is it just feels too soft and rubbery. It's as if there's no bones holding it up. And if you draw a figure drawing or anything, well, a figure drawing, let's say, with only straight lines, then you have a dead drawing. It's just not going to have the life and vitality that it would have with a curved, drawing. So with curves in it. So it's like yin and yang. You want a little bit of both to sort of balance out your experience in drawing the figure. Now, all the drawings I've shown you up to this point have what I'm talking about, and in some it's a little more obvious, and others it's a little more hidden, but they all have it. And sometimes I'll draw, here I'll show you an example. I'll draw very purposely in a shape-like manner. So this drawing has a lot of shape in it. Notice scale also. We talked about scale last week. Look at the head, look at this hand, right? You can really feel us traveling out of the page, like this, in this drawing. But it has a lot of design. There's a lot of design in this, and you can see that I'm very clearly shaping out the figure. I hope that makes sense. That drawing is very different than, let's say, this drawing, right? My mind was in a different place. It's not to say that this drawing doesn't have shape in it. It does. It's just more hidden. It's not my main reason for doing it. It's not the statement that I'm after. So, you can see there's, some people say, oh, it's like a style change. Well, what is style? I mean, style is really how I'm thinking. What am I thinking about? Here I was very specifically sort of blocking out structure and shape and trying to keep fluidity moving through it, keep force moving through it. So it takes on a different presentation, right? All right, so we have this shape. Now what's really essential here that I want to talk about is that there are, let's use red, just to bring in some color. There are 3 shapes that do not work. This works, right? This is good. Blue, good. Blue, good. Red, bad. What you want to be careful of when you're drawing are these shapes. These are the don'ts. And they are this, this, and this. As soon as you see one of these moments in your drawing, stop and think, how do I get more force into this? These all basically kill force. And the reason is they're symmetrical, right? Symmetrical, symmetrical, symmetrical. If we go to the idea of these lines, right, these lines equal force, now they're designing a shape. Force here is pushing equally in on both sides of this shape and basically stopping it in its center. It's like a pinch. On this one, if these are, again, force lines, they basically collide at the top and collide at the bottom, and they stop force. I always call this like it's sort of like the sausage or the candy roll. It's like I feel like you're like tying up force at the top and at the bottom and not allowing it to move anywhere. And then this one, there's no asymmetry, so force just slides right through this. This is like a pipe. A pipe doesn't have any grace to it. A flower has grace to it, not a steel pipe, right? And that's why, because a steel pipe is not fluid. If you took two elbows, right, 2 elbow pipes, and they were like this, that would have some fluidity to it, right? Because you'd be doing this, and then you'd be doing this, right? But just 2 straight parallel lines like that kills it. So what you're looking for is this guy. Right now we'll have purple. We're looking at blue and red to create this force shape. So now we have straight and curve. So force would come in here and hit this, right here is the apex, right? This is the main event. And it's pushing down right on this area here, okay? And then after that, it's going to move out of that shape. I'm probably going off the edge here, there. It's going to move out of that shape into another forceful shape. And that forceful shape will have a straight and a curve. And when it comes in from here, it'll be like so. Okay? So what starts happening is you have like this straight to curve, straight to curve, straight to curve, and over the years of teaching, it's been named anything from the lemon slice to the half pizza to there's been numerous analogies over the last 20 years now. But abstractly speaking, you're looking at something that looks like this, right? It's like this to this to this, and the human body doesn't look like that, right? So how do we figure it out? I think what I'm going to do here is let me grab a drawing that is like really organic. All right. Oh, this is a better one. Okay. So here's like a drawing of a foot and a hand. Okay, I think that's on camera there. So first of all, notice that number 1, this drawing has a lot of force in it. And then number 2, look at all the surface lines, right? The force lines that show form, right? That show structure. But now we're going to talk about shape and design. So it's not a very obvious one. but there's still shape in this, okay? Let's see, how can I explain this? So the first thing to understand is, in general, the foot's like this. That's what's happening in this foot, and notice that I'm doing it through shape, okay? So there you go. There's the abstraction of this foot. Believe me when I tell you that this is one of the first things that my mind sees and thinks about when I'm drawing. I may not draw it like that, but this is my diagram. This is what I'm reacting to. I'm like, wow, look, the foot is doing this. There it is, right? The foot is doing this. And I'm seeing it at this really abstract level, right? This abstract level, and this is sort of all the detail and icing on the cake, all the anatomy that's on top. This is what's really going on. And what really helps it is having this straight right here and this curve push over this. You know, it's almost like, it's like water. Here, just to make this really easier, much easier. You know, here's a mountain, okay? This is like a mountain. And it's right there, right? And the foot is water. And the foot wants to go over the edge of the mountain. See that? Right? And then the rock that's here has a sweep in it. Right? It's built like this. Okay? So what happens to the water? You know, it comes down like this and it sweeps back up like so. Right? And then it's going to go, look there, you know, it goes into the top of the toe. Okay, it sweeps up like that. And then once it goes through the top of the toe, it sweeps out the bottom of the toe. And in that, not to get off the topic here, you know, I'm trying to think about straights and curves. Okay, so I just did it there. You know, I basically said, here's a straight, here's a curve. You know, and I'm like trying to see that shape. Okay, and then here's my curve and here's my straight. It basically just comes right over from this one. It's a very abstract idea, but God, you know, if you could get this, its level of abstraction is what makes it so powerful, because it's so simple. It lets your work become that much more powerful. So, you know, so again, try to keep that in mind. Now, when here's an example. I showed you like a more detailed version of anatomy. I'll give you another one that I usually do in class. All right. So typically, you know, you have the human arm. Okay, there's a curve and a curve. Here's the elbow, by the way, and this is the wrist, and this is the deltoid or the shoulder. And I would say, well, if I have this curve and I have this curve, I'm going to have a straight and I'm going to have a straight. But no one's arm looks like that. I mean, it's sort of cartoony. But if I start adding, you know, I could start adding other curves to this and not break the rules that we discussed, right? So, where are those rules? All right. Let's do it like this. All right, so you see the don'ts on the screen. Okay. So I can, anatomically, you've got the forearm muscle here, and it's like so, right? And then it hits the straight, you know, and you got your elbow sticking out over here, and you've got your deltoid muscle, and you got your tricep, okay, and you got your bicep. Let's do this higher. The trick is to not have things become symmetrical, right? This is all about symmetry. So this might cut in like this and then cut up over here. This bicep is longer than the tricep, you know, so it's like this. It depends, right, if it's flexed or not. So it would normally be stretched longer here because it's not flexed. And then this, you know, this curve over here doesn't interfere with the long curve of force. Remember, this is the curve of force, this is the curve of force. And then I have the straight here. So I'm still moving through this anatomy with this underpinning. You know, this is curved, sorry, and that's straight. You know, and then I could say that the wrist is like this and the hand is like this, and then the fingers sweep up like so. You know, and force is still rhythmic, right? It's still flowing through the anatomy, but I'm adding other shapes on top of that to define a more realistic silhouette And yet within that silhouette, I'm still being forceful, and I understand abstraction and so on. So, this I think was a great example. Water is a great analogy to think about when you're drawing, that it's like flowing down the page and you're moving from one place to another and so on. So, God, it's the 4th week and it's the end of the last video. I hope that you learned something over these past 4 videos. There's just so much to discuss and cover when it comes to the idea of force. I hope I've inspired you and educated you to go out and do your thing. If you ever want to get in touch with me, you can always get me at drawingforce.com, and my email there is just Mike at. And it's been a great pleasure. Drawingforce.com. And thank you. Thank you very much for listening. And I hope to hear from you. So take care. Bye.